Kosuke. Shone. Right. Yoshine. Right. Ozgane. Right.
Before we get going, because the subject came up, does anybody know why we wear uniform the way we wear our uniform? Why it matters?
Not exactly.
I heard some people hide their knives in here.
Okay.
So if they, because predominantly samurai were, or at least a lot of Japanese soldiers were predominantly right-handed, or so they would have to get it out through having this on the left.
Not predominant, yes, but not predominantly. You were only right-handed back in the day. Left-handed people were thought of as evil, bad in just about every culture there was. So yes, majority of people are right-handed, so when they would fish things out, we'd have to be this way. Is there any time that you would wear it the other way? And don't say if you're left-handed, because that's wrong.
Ceremonies?
Which ceremony?
Funerals or
Whose
weddings?
funeral? Whose funeral?
Your own, maybe?
Your own.
Oh.
The only time that you wear it right on top is when you are laid out in the casket, about to go in the ground or into the fire. But, that comes later. Okay, more specifically, they dress you right over left. You don't dress yourself at that point.
Right.
But no, for that, you actually remove the top and do it so the clothes don't find it. So, yeah, it's always left on top till the day of your funeral, and then they dress you right on top and send you on your way. All right, enough of that. Everybody back up one square. Step out, left forward stance, left middle guard. Both hands, Jeff. There we go. Good. Coming forward, Izagiri, knee lift. Eight. Eight. One. Eight. Go. Go. Eight. What there?
Yeah. The only thing that I should hear from you guys, other than a ki, is your gi rubbing against your legs. I should not hear a thundering herd of elephants. Eight. Eight. Ah, that's better. Up. Cheek. Go. Rope. Eight. Hut. Two.
What there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Eight. Eight. One. Cheek. Go. Rope. Teach. What there?
Yeah. Us.
Eight. Eight. One. Cheek. Go. Rope. Teach. What there?
Yeah.
Eight. Eight. One. Cheek. Go. Rope. Teach. What there?
Yes.
Eight. Eight. One. Cheek. Go. What there?
Yes. Yeah.
You all right?
You better watch for a second. See if you can see a difference between, I'm going to do the knee lift that you guys were just doing. Are we done? To see if you can see a difference between the two, other than right side, left side, or bad hip, better hip, kind of thing. All right, that's not what I'm looking for. Just see if you can see a difference.
painted the top of that one. See a difference? Did I do something differently between those two? Let's do it again, I'll just reverse it on the side.
And first one, he just, went straight up and back down. The second one, he went straight up, went tapping down and then completely.
Okay, that's a hip issue, but not what I'm talking about.
Head height?
Okay. Partially.
The front shake had less torque.
Yeah,
in one
that's a
leg.
hip thing. You're right, that's a hip thing, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. This is probably why some of you are doing it then, because you don't realize it and you don't see it in other people. Well, if I'm gonna kick, if I'm gonna do a knee lift, this is my base leg. What should this base leg do?
Balance your body, stay.
Balance, right, stay with, anything else? Aid the hip drop, okay. Anything else? Okay. What happens if I go to kick and I do this? I'm gonna shorten it up a little bit so I don't pop a hip.
It doesn't firm enough, you don't have enough stability,
Why?
because you're already, removing that leg from the position it's in. You've already got momentum driving your body. With that momentum and that lack of, with that momentum, plus you temporarily moving your foot, you're unstable.
Okay, it is moving the foot that's the problem, but that it doesn't necessarily cause what you're describing. But that moving that foot is a problem. Can be that, depends on how good of a kicker you are. What's the biggest problem with moving that front foot that far right before I kick?
Did you moved it to the side?
I just step straight forward. Kick is coming. That's the problem.
Telegraph.
Hey guy, I know we're fighting. Kick is coming. Now, if you do the step, there is a time and a place for that. If he's moving back, sure, go get it. Okay? Nothing you can really do about a kick anyway if he's moving backwards, if you time it correctly. But from all things being equal, you step, they know it's coming. They're gonna step in, they're gonna eat your lunch. If you step wrong, you get everything that Juan just described, and then they eat your lunch twice. So from here, this foot doesn't do anything, really, except, again, provide stability and all the good stuff. It should not move to telegraph the kick. The only reason this foot would really move is if I'm gonna kick with this foot. That kind of thing.
Also.
Alright, so those of you that are doing that, please stop. Unless we're sparring, and then keep doing it, taking energy.
In case of sparring, would you kind of use it as a bait? Like you're tricking your opponent into thinking that you're using like a straight front kick? And then like use the other one instead?
Could you do that? Yes, but it's not gonna look the same. There's a difference between how it looks when you just step forward, prepping that back leg kick, and when you're trying to do that. Here's the other thing. Sensei Jerry's opinion on feints, which developed from him hitting me a lot. What's the difference between throwing a technique and throwing a feint?
I would say there shouldn't be any.
Investment.
Maybe your feint will work.
Okay. It's not that there's no difference, there's one difference, and that's the only difference. What would you say?
Investment.
Investment.
Investment in embodied movement.
No. Can't hit around on a net. The only difference between you feinting something and you're throwing something for real is the feint didn't connect. That's the only difference. If you throw something half-assed, whatever. What happens if they walk into it? You're throwing just kind of an feint, they walk into it, break a finger like I did one time. That's not fun. They walk into a feint that's got something behind it. Gravy for you. Alright, step out, left forward stance, left middle guard. Hey. Stepping forward. How you soaking giddy? Instep kick. Hey. Whoosh. Hey. Up. Feet. Go. What there?
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh. I was asking, apparently you trained Chikaru up at Pensacola.
Hey. Instep kick. Hey. Up. That's what he said. Hey. What there?
Yeah.
Hey. Hey. Son. Cheek. Go. What there?
Yeah.
Hey. Hey. Son. Cheek. Go. What there?
Yeah.
Come on. Alright, Thatcher, once you come up here to the middle of the floor, turn around, face the rest of the class, and teach them instep kick.
Yes, sir. So, the beginning is the same. You step in with the normal stance, you come up, it's the same as a knee lift.
There we go.
But from here, you don't instantly come down. From here, you extend the lower half of your leg forward. And you always want to have this straight with you want to have your foot straight with the rest of your lower foot. And you want to make sure that it's still like raised properly, like a 90-degree angle with your upper body. And then you unextend it, and then you put it back down.
What are you gonna make?
The targeting of
Unextended, use retraction instead.
retraction. You want to retract it forward towards the middle of your body line right here, and then you want to unretract it, and
No,
then
you're
put
not,
it back down.
you're not listening. This is extension, this is retraction. Keep going.
What else? Once you step forward, you come up with the same leg, you extend it, retract it, and then you put it back down. But you always want to make sure that you always have this control as you're coming down into your normal front stance. Yeah. So I wouldn't just pick up the leg and then put it here and come to a front stance. From here it's knee, and then you put it back down. But make sure that your head is always level so when you do the front stance. So I typically like to keep a slight bend to my back leg. So that way when I come down, I'm not raising my head as much when I come back down. Let's see. Targeting is for the instep kick. It's meant to be towards the lower body. It can be used to hit like the inner thigh or the whatchamacallit, and I guess in some cases you might want to have you might be able to like hit it at towards the knee here towards your opponent.
No, we're getting into round kick. You're not on a bad track, but too much for the others.
Right. And targeting. I think that's it.
Good job, second line. Alright, one, key,
started to touch on one thing, but then he ended up missing it. What one thing did he miss?
Give me 1 second to look back on this.
No. Please give me 1 second. Yeah.
Please give me 1 second to look back on this. Okay? From what I understand it, in my personal point of view, one thing that he did miss is that although it clearly uses the same foundation as the knee lift, you were right on the extension and retraction. However, rather than keep it in this angle, one thing that we must keep in mind is how the foot is oriented, so to speak. Knee lifts are downward. Front kicks, they rely more on the body of the foot. In the meantime, the instep kick. The instep kick focuses more on the.
Okay.
Sorry.
No. Do not stop doing that. Do not apologize every time I stop you. You do not do anything wrong. You have nothing to apologize for. Okay. All right. We're all men in here, so I'm gonna say this. Yes, men apologize when they're wrong. They don't constantly apologize for stuff that didn't do wrong. You're doing fine. Okay? I interrupted you because you're going down a good thought process that we need to discuss at some point. It's not now getting long-winded, and it's not addressing the question that I asked. That's the only reason I stopped. So keep that thought. We will come back to it at a later date. If we have time, remind me at the end of the class, we'll come back and revisit what you were thinking about.
Both.
Because it was a good thought. It's not answering the question. So your answer to my question is you don't know, which is fine. What did he miss?
Sir, I believe,
Or he started to touch on, but then went off the rails and didn't touch it.
Thatcher never clarified where exactly are we supposed to hit
Exactly.
the
What's the
person.
weapon? Right.
You're essentially supposed to hit right here on the foot. But if you hit on the toes, you're most likely going to break it. Over here, probably going to injure your foot a bit. This will allow a.
Alright. Okay, now you're just being long-winded. You're not wrong, but you're not specific enough. Okay. The instep kick, in its basic format, you are using the top of the big toe knuckle right here, the first knuckle, where the toes bend up. That is what you're striking with. Up and in. Excuse me, curling the toes. Alright, that's basically for now, especially, that's what I want you thinking about. You guys can start thinking about other things. And that other things are basically anywhere from the bottom of the kneecap to the end of the big toe is what you're striking with, depending on where you're striking. All the targeting that you laid out, other than the knee, and we'll get into a different debate then. Yeah. That is your weapon. But you need, again, to be specific with your weapon. So for now, what you thinking, Jackson, about that first knuckle on the big toe going up into the groin and back out. Cool? All right. Left forward stance, left shoot on command. ISO for beauty. Instep kick. 8. Good. 8. Up. Cheek. Go. Good. Right there. Good.
Close.
8. 8. Up. Cheek. Go. Right there. Good.
Close.
8. 8. Up. Cheek.
Yeah, I saw it. Trying to do.
Did you break your back on the cruise? Or are you
Yes,
just
sir.
trying to annoy me?
No, sir.
Hey. some of us have excuses why we're kicking ants. Why is your kick suddenly 2 inches off the floor for an instep kick?
Don't know, sir.
What there? Yeah.
Well,
Hey. Thank you. Hey. Done. Sheet. Go. What there? Yeah.
oh,
Good. Han Yokogiri. Front 45 side kick.
Post.
Hey. Hey. Done. Sheet. Go. What there? Yeah. Hey. Hey. Done. Sheet. Go. What there? Yeah. Come here. One, front center, face down, front 45 side kick.
one of the main key things that we must, first of all, one thing that I do want to clarify, nearly all kicks use the same foundation from the knee lift.
Not nearly all of them.
Near all of them use the same foundation as the knee lift. What happens differently are three main things. How we use the kicks after said knee lift, where we're aiming at, and finally, the extension and retraction of the kick. In this case, in the 45-degree side kick, we've already got the knee lift, so to speak. However, after this, there's a shifting of the kick that's aiming at the 45-degree angle. Now, after we've got that shift in the 45-degree angle, we extend.
What? You're doing great. I want everybody, especially you, to watch what he's doing here, because this is part of what's going on. So continue. He's doing exactly what I need you to do. Keep going.
Now, after we've got that rotation in the hip, we're still extending the leg, but in comparison to the knee lift or the instep kick, which focuses on extending this part of the body, we're using more of the upper hip area to extend the rest of the leg. So, I've already got the knee lift, then in this side of the leg, you extend it forward, you track it back, and then depending on what we're practicing, we step forward or return back to our position. In this case, usually from what I understand it, the 45-degree side kick, it focuses more on hitting either the shin to the lower kneecap area. And is there something that I missed?
You tell me.
Then
If you're asking a question, you probably think you did.
Is there anything I have missed?
Answer it. Does anybody have an answer to his question?
Your load's right, and you rotate your hip, but as you're extending the kick, you can also rotate that bottom foot, so you can get the full rotation, and then back.
Right.
And you were kinda keeping it straight, and you're gonna tear something if you do that.
Absolutely. We'll flesh that out here a little bit more in just a second. What else?
What part of the foot are you hitting with?
There you go.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you for reminding me of that. Thank you for reminding me of that. Now, one thing that we're mainly focusing on, this kind of extends to the idea that I was talking about earlier.
Less is more. This
However,
is way too much prep to answer a
now,
question that requires literally
we're
6
basically
words.
using this
There we go.
side of the foot when kicking.
You go.
Compared to other kicks, this side of the kick is mainly being used for the targeting.
just hold the ball to your foot
No,
over here, and
No.
maybe the.
and we'll explain why in a second. Anything else?
You got, I would say try and get your toes down as much as you can.
Yeah, more on the foot. Okay, yeah, we'll address that. Yeah, the rest of the stuff was detailed on the foot. All right, well, back in line. Excellent job, though.
Arigato.
Good strategy. Good strategy. Teaching trick though. When you're teaching the basics, the word I believe or in my opinion, no. Teach this.
Well,
Okay? My opinion, that's a philosophical discussion. You're discussing not philosophy here, so it's the way it is. Now, if you're wrong, then you fix it next time. But it's just a whole lot of prep words that don't need to be added in.
well,
Cut to the chase. Right? If we had a 4-hour debate going, use all the words you want, but time is of the essence. Right? Okay. The rotation of the base foot. If I'm kicking in this direction, ideally, I want my base foot lined up with my kick. Very few people have that flexibility, so it's going to be off a little bit. That's okay. But you definitely do not want to leave it and try and kick this way and torque the knee, because you will tear something. So, with everything Juan was talking about, in the beginning, when you were talking about that hip rotation, that's when the foot rotates. You were showing it to a pretty good degree, you just didn't really describe it that much. What we're striking with, you're going to curl the toes up, curl the foot in, so that you are projecting the outside 1 inch of your heel. It's not the side of your foot. It is 1 inch right here on the outside edge of your heel. That's what you're striking with. Now, the reason you can't use your toes, because my toes are not in that power line. If you try to like hook the toes and twist it to a side kick, I know a couple of orthopedists that I will recommend for your surgery, because that's exactly what's going to happen. If you grab your toes into something and then twist it like a side kick, you're going to tear 2, maybe 3 joints doing that. So, the other part, you described it very well. I'm going to give you a suggestion on a couple of different words, though. On the extension, Juan is absolutely correct. It is a different extension than a front kick or an instep kick. A side kick is a hip extensor, not a knee extensor. So as the leg comes up for a front kick or an instep kick, I'm extending my knee. If in a side kick, I just extend my knee, I get this really stupid looking round kick kind of direction. It goes that way. I want it to go this way, literally like I'm punching with my foot. So I concentrate on extending my hip, and the knee just goes where it needs to go. I don't think about extending the knee. Oh, good job. Left front stance, left middle guard. Heist, or excuse me, Han Yokogiri. Front 45 side kick. Feet. Much better on everybody. Up. Feet. Oh. What there? Yeah. Eight. Eight. Up. Feet. Go. What there? Yeah. One thing too, that you described very well. One, I don't remember you touching on it, but you were showing it. Do not extend your base leg. When I'm coming forward, head, hip, same level. I don't want to do this when I do that knee load. The second you straighten that base leg, somebody like me is going to scoop you up, throw you, juggle you for a few seconds, and then drop you on your head. You must stay low in the kick, or in the motion, even, if you're just stepping. Oh. Oh. Eight. Eight. Love. Keep. Go. Eight. Son. Keep. Go. What there?
Yeah.
Ushirogiri. Back kick. Bend your front leg. Come on, Jackson. Eight. Eight. Up. Keep. Go. What there?
Yeah.
Eight. Eight. Up. Keep. Go. What there?
Yeah.
Okay, stay right where you are. You get some answer from there. Other than just a straight knee lift, how many knee lifts are there in every other kick?
Two.
Two. Minimum two. The reason I say minimum of two, you might kick again, so there might be another one. You start with a knee lift, and you end with a knee lift. Everything retracts back to the knee lift. This becomes, it's recoverable in the other kicks that are going forward because of your weight transfer and human dynamics. Screwing it up in a back kick is almost non-recoverable. And here's what I mean by that. Most of you are doing a really good knee load coming up. Kick, and then you're kind of flopping this thing back. Or you're coming to here and then trying to lift up. So what you're actually doing, knee load's pretty good, kick's pretty good, but if I just do this, now I'm trying to cantilever my entire upper body, and I am way out of balance. And guess what happens when you get somebody who likes to grapple like I do? You're going to feel thrown a whole lot. Here, back, here. If for no other reason, I might not need to kick again. So I kick this dude, and I half-ass this one, and now all of a sudden I'm eating this guy coming in. Here, boom, you're loaded for wherever I need to go. Well, the few times that I had the pleasure of sparring with Hanshi, that was one of the things that was his like bread and butter. He would lift that leg up into a knee load. You didn't know what was coming. He could throw anything from that. Return to it and then hit you again with it. That's what we're trying to do. Basically, it sets you up for the next technique. So everything starts and stops from this knee load. Knee lift. Both. Loose. Okay. Eight. Eight. You need to bring the knee up first, then kick, and then bring it back in front. Not like a mule straight from the ground here. Eight. Eight. Up. Good. What there?
Yeah.
Eight. Eight. Up. Keep. Go. What there?
Yeah.
Another thing to remember is as I'm doing this back kick, I do not want a whole lot of daylight between my legs. It puts the hip at a bad angle and my balance at an even worse angle. You want to think, just like when we punch, we talked about in the beginning, scraping the rib cage on the way out, right? So that we're not doing this crazy. Same thing, back kick. I want to think about scraping the inside of my thighs together going out. The other part, again, the last 1 inch of the outside edge of the heel for side kick, the last 1 inch bottom side of the heel for back kick. That's what we're using. Toes are pointed straight down. foot is flexed. I don't wanna rotate the hip over and start turning it into a backside kick. Nope. Alright, coming forward. Eight. Eight.
Legs closer together when you kick.
Up. Like that. Eight. Go. Like that. Yeah.
Close.
Eight. Eight. Up. Sheet. Go. Like that. Yeah.
Close.
Alright, yeah, man. Does everybody know what a top or a dreidel is?
Close.
Everybody knows? Okay. So you take that, you spin, right? What happens if I take that perfectly balanced top and I stick a nail in the side of it and try and spin it? What happens then?
Doesn't spin so well.
Wop, 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 wop. Okay? That's if I put it in like a 90 degrees, it might kind of do this, but still kind of sort of rotate. What happens if I stick it at some kind of crazy, odd angle? What happens? Whoop, bite. Right? Back kick, again, this is crucially important for your balance. You're here in your guard, you're getting ready to throw this back kick, and you do this. You just stuck a nail in the side of that top, and you're going. Or, probably worst of all possibilities, you do this. Now what's happened?
You're hoping to jump up, sir.
Right. I've thrown my balance off so that when I kick this guy, I'm gonna bounce off of him. My hands are splayed open, so I'm gonna bounce right into his buddy who's gonna punch me in the face a lot. Ideally, perfect flexibility. I should be able to back kick with my hip, pelvis, and upper body in this line and get a 90-degree kick out of it. Yeah, good luck with that. Now, even though most of you guys have pretty good flexibility, you're gonna get a little bit of a lean forward. This is just flexibility-wise. But you still have to keep your head up and guard up to the front for what you're doing, right? So as I look, I come back, boom, here, right? Kicking, I'm looking over the back. Probably Ken's the only one in here old enough to know who this person is. Does anybody, by any fluke of the imagination, other than having heard me told this story before, know who Cynthia Rothrock is? No. Yeah. Back in the 90s, there was a whole series of karate movies that were like B movies. They were okay. But one of the main stars was this lady named Cynthia Rothrock. She literally had no joints. She was a complete dummy. In every one of her movies, in the pivotal fight scene at the end, you would have some big giant bad guy who would put her in a front bear hug. So they're face to face, she's got him in a bear hug. She would throw a back kick up over her shoulder and hit him in the face. Who in here can do that? Who in here has that flexibility? None of us. So unless you're her, quit trying to shoot for that kind of length. The back kick is not a long range technique. A back kick is actually a very short range technique. It is of the five basic techniques, 5 basic kicks: knee lift, instep, front 45 side kick, back kick, front kick. It is the second shortest. Knee lift is the only one that's shorter range than it. Everything else, because you're not trying to shoot that far behind you. And how can I tell that you're reaching too far? Because you're turning it over, rotating the hip, trying to reach farther than you need to. You're only going to throw the kick as far as your squared pelvis will allow you to throw it. If you're finding yourself rotating and opening up, you're trying to shoot this too far. Well, in a practical sense, what are you really doing with a back kick? What are you kicking? Ken says abdomen of somebody behind you. Okay.
You're turning, pretending like you're gonna run.
Okay. Spinning back kick to the abdomen. Okay. That's Ken's opinion. What do you guys? What the rest of you guys say? Whatchamacallit? No, wrong angle. That's not a back kick. Okay, when you go home, I want you to think about your anatomy and think about how a kick going straight across horizontally is going to do what you think, what you're telling me that you want to do with it.
Work well.
Knee, absolutely. Okay, guy behind you taking the knee out. What else? You four should be thinking somewhere.
You could possibly, you could say right in between, in which you can get your opponent off balance.
Okay, inner thigh, soft tissue strike. Okay, off balance. Sure.
Throw.
Throw. Basic combination 4. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. What's the throw that goes with the basic combination number 4?
The back kick.
Back kick. As a throw. Right? 99.9999% of the time you see anybody throw a back kick, it's to throw somebody. Not as a striking back kick. Right? So we're learning that long line so that we can think about doing it basically as a thigh throw. Eventually. Cool? Alright, left forward stance, left middle guard. Mind kitty, front kick.
Post.
8. Up. Cheek. Go. What there?
Yeah.
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 Alright, young man. What's the basic weapon for a front kick? What are we using?
We're using very leg specifically. This
Yeah.
person.
No. Give me a name to it. Even if you make up one that only means something to you, make up a name for it or tell me the name of it. The anatomy that you're pointing at.
Front.
Thatcher, how about your buddy?
Thick toes.
That's not your big toe, but okay. You both are pointing to the correct thing. You just give me the name of it. Sounds like might start with Juan. Help him out.
Bridge of the foot?
Ball of the foot. Let's go with that. It's called the ball of your foot. You weren't far off though. It's the ball, the underside ball of your big toe, big and second toe. Basically, you're making it with a fist. Right. If I were to lay that down there, that's exactly what it should look like. Now, big toe. If you train yourself to kick that way, ooh, that's sweet. Okay. When Hachi was coming up in Japan, out in back of the dojo, there was a grove of pine trees. Each student was assigned their own pine tree. So part of the training at every class is they would go out and they would punch and kick their pine tree. But they would not front kick with the ball of the foot. They would not round kick with the ball of the foot. They would front kick and round kick with the tip end of their big toe. And what that does is it basically turns those 1, 2, 3 pieces of bone into one solid unit. So for a long time, Hachi could never bend his big toe. It was literally fused into a straight line. And when he drove that front kick up under that pressure point under your floating rib, you will see whatever deity you believe in from the pain. Now, I can do some soft tissue, inner thigh, stuff like that with the ball of my big toe. He would do hard target, rib cage, stuff like that. So it can be done. And point into the big toe is a great weapon, but you have to train yourself to it. Now, I'll tell you a funny story to warn you off of going out and kicking pine trees. Shortly before Hanshi left for Arkansas, he was teaching karate as a PE class for Valencia Community College. And at that time, my work schedule allowed me to get off work, go down, I would sit in on some of his classes. He liked for me to come down because I was not a student there, so he could beat the dog snot out of me as an example as to how this worked, because he couldn't beat on the college students. Well, one day, it was in a dance room, is normally where the class was. One day, there was something going on in that dance room, so they moved his class to the actual gym, basketball gym. There was a concrete block wall. So when I got in there, Hanshi was up against the block wall, tapping it with his big toe, just to keep him warm and keep him in practice. Now, he wasn't like blasting it, he was kind of doing his version of what I just showed. He was just tapping it. You'll see me once in a while, if I'm up here, I'll be doing this, just to keep myself in practice. One of his students was a green belt in some form of ninjutsu, but he fancied himself one of these kind of guys. His ego was about 12 times his own size. So Hanshi say on this wall, doing his thing, I've got my back to it facing out. This guy we're talking about walked in that door, saw what Hanshi's doing, he starts doing this. And I'm like, there is no way he can be thinking what I know he's thinking. Impossible. He sets his bag down, he's still watching. The whole time I'm thinking, no, he can't. He looks over, he finds himself a spot on the wall, looks over at Hanshi one last time and goes, boom! Full bore, tip end of his big toe into a concrete block wall. You hear the foot explode. He falls on the ground. I start laughing hysterically. Hanshi looks at me, he's like, what are you laughing at? I'm like hyperventilating, I'm laughing so hard. Like, I pointed because I can't tell. He looks over, he's like, he didn't. I'm like, yeah, he did. So we go over there, and by the time we walked over to him, his foot was the size of a watermelon. We both look down at him, and we go, what were you thinking? His exact quote. I saw you do it. I thought I could do it. So his buddy walked in about that time. We're like, take him to the doctor. So he toted him to the emergency room. I saw him a couple weeks later in a big old foot cast. So yeah, if you're going to train your body that way, a little bit every day. Don't go full bore front kick a concrete block wall because you saw an 8th degree senior black belt who trained that way tapping it with his foot. So don't do stupid things. Stupid should be painful, like that. So don't do that.
No, sir.
All right. What else do I want to mention? There's one key thing that a 45 or a side kick in general, the front 45 side kick that we were just talking about, and a front kick have in common about how the leg moves. Anybody tell me what that is? More specifically, how the leg extends.
Extension of the head.
Right. Well, man. Yes, but now that I'm thinking about it, it's actually a mirror image of that. Okay? Side kick is a hip extender, right? A front kick is a hip flexor, but it's still in the hip. The knee only extends as an ancillary motion to the kick. So once the kick is up in a front kick, and I'm trying to push it out and extend the hip that way, rather than extend the hip this way. So again, we are both right. It is extension. And how you can tell is a front kick and a side kick both should go in a straight line. It should not have an up angle to it. So when you're doing a front kick, I see your foot going up, you're extending the knee and not the hip. must extend it. It's literally, again, like I'm punching with my foot, not swinging with my foot. Goes?
Post.
Alright. Left front stance, left middle guard. Mind kitty, front kick.
Post.
8. Up. Front your foot more so you fall, your foot's going out. 8. Go. When you're kicking, you're kind of throwing your foot this way and pressing with your heel. What I want you to curl the toes and go straight forward. Like that. Yeah. 8. 8. Up. Keep. Oh. Like that. Yeah. 8. 8. Up. Keep. Oh. Like that. Yeah. 8. 8. Up. Keep. Go. Like that. Yeah. 8. 8. Up. Keep. Go. Like that. Yeah. 8. 8. Up. Keep. Go. Like that. Yeah. Good. Come back. Alright, questions on kicking? Monday, remind me when we start counting. Questions on kicking?
Sure.
Okay. For those of you that have heard this particular lecture before, be quiet. Okay? Those of you that have not heard this lecture before can answer. You know who you are, and I know who you are. Okay. Izagiri. What's the English translation? Come on, somebody, even those of you that have not heard this part before, heard me say it today. Come on.
Knee lift.
Knee lift. Okay, actually knee kick. Right? Ease up. Knee. Literally, you're talking, yada, 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 ease up. Yeah, my knee hurt, ease up. Izagiri. Knee kick. Instep kick. Haisoku giri. Haisoku, instep of your foot. Literally, it's the Japanese for instep of your foot. So, instep kick. Front 45 side kick. Han yoko giri. Now we're getting the plan here. So, Han means half. Literally means half. So, we say front 45. 45 is half of 90. Right? That's where the front 45 part comes from. Yoko, side. Literally, side. Side of a building, side of you, that kind of thing. So, half side kick is the literal translation of Han yoko giri. So, full side kick, half side kick. Ushiro giri, back kick. Ushiro, back kick. Mai giri, front kick. Mai, front. Front to the building, front to the body, front of your car. Mai. So, Iza giri, knee kick. Yada yada, giri, yada yada, whatever. Okay? So, what is the Japanese word for kick?
Giri.
Alright?
I agree.
You agree? Okay. So everybody thinks that the word giri by itself means kick. Yeah? You can answer yes or no.
Yes.
Okay? Good. I like the yes. Be confident in your answer. You're wrong.
No. It's
Okay, hang on. We'll get to it. This is a funny story that you guys should now know forever. If you separate out the word giri as giri, G-E-R-I, it means diarrhea. Kick is
Keri, K-E-K-E-R-I. In Japanese grammar, when you add words that have a K sound at the front of it to other words, you change it to G. So in English, we would probably have left this Iza Kiri, Haisoku Kiri. But Japanese grammar, because the Japanese are Japanese, say no, you change it to G. So, my giri is front kick. What's the word for front? My. What's the word for kick? Kiri. And if you say giri, you just told them that front diarrhea, basically, is what you were trying to explain. So, funny story to say that. So yeah, be really careful. It's the same thing with the Japanese word for cut, which is kiri, K-I-R-I. When you add it to other words, it changes to giri, G-I-R-I. So be kind of careful with separating out words like that. Maybe your Japanese grammar lesson for the day. Any other questions? You good? Good question.
I feel like, so whenever I do like my back kick, I always feel like, since like I have to really control it when I come up,
Right.
I kind of feel like my shoulders like instinctively
It is.
shrug a lot.
Stop doing it. Relax.
Just do it
It's
slow.
no more difficult than that. You should be tensing up. Stop tensing up.
Oops.
Now, how he cured me of that was he hit me with a stick a lot until I relaxed. So, take your pick. You can do it on your own, or I can find a stick. Anything else? We good?
The idea that you're going to put a pin stop on.
Oh, remind me next class.
Oh,
I ran out of time. I completely forgot. Anything else? Okay, call
Okay? Show me, right? Kyoshini, right? Otsugani, right?
ありがとうございました。終わってね。Go home.
Sir.